Hi everyone, this is your favorite film critic Jay or Jaylan Salah as you formerly know her. Today I have the pleasure of interviewing music composer Dave Porter to talk about composing the score for the new mysterious Vince Gilligan Apple TV Plus series Pluribus. Dave has scored every episode for Breaking Bad, Better Call Saul, and also Blacklist, which is like one of my favorites, and I was so excited to learn about this. Dave, so happy to have you here today.
Pleasure to be with you.
Okay, I can't start without talking about Breaking Bad. But when you were scoring something as grand as this, as modernity as possible can come close to Greek goddesses and Greek mythology, did you know you were scoring greatness?
I knew it was great. I wasn't sure everyone else would know it was great. I think is the real answer. We very early on Breaking Bad knew we had a very special show for sure, and a very unique talent in Vince Gilligan. But to be honest, I had a feeling it would be a critical darling that not a lot of people would see. That was my initial take on it, and especially we had some rocky start there with a writer's strike very early on in season one that curtailed our first season, and it was really I think credit to Vince and the writers and Bryan Cranston's performance early on that really raised some eyebrows and eventually got it to become the behemoth it became.
So how different was getting into the world of Pluribus than Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul and the whole shebang?
Very different. And I've been so blessed to work with this same family of folks for so many years now. But in truth, this is the first time in almost 20 years that we've started from scratch since the pilot of Breaking Bad, if
Wow.
you really think about it, because all of those other shows, while very different and exploring a lot of different ground, each of them, uh, they all did have a common thread that we could trace all the way back to the original pilot of Breaking Bad. But Pluribus is a wholly new animal, and I think the creative sort of direction for all of us involved was to start from scratch and really rethink how we work and what we wanted to do and create a whole new universe for Carol.
Okay, so you take me from the beginning. You get the project. How do you work? What is your process for composing music for, let's say, okay, here is the series. Do you have the episodes? Do you just have like sit downs and meetings and stuff? How does it start?
A lot of talking to start with, and not a lot of writing of music. Mostly, especially on something like this, where again we're starting from scratch. I'm trying to get whatever tidbits they're willing to feed me as early on as possible, so that I can learn as much about what they're trying to do. And I think a composer's process is not so dissimilar from a scriptwriter's process. And so I think of it that way. I think of it very much about how music can be helpful in the storytelling and the ways hopefully that we can interweave it into the storytelling and therefore make the show as a whole more powerful. So a lot of discussions, a lot of me trying to understand every aspect of what they're trying to do. And then much later, uh, when most of the episodes are done, is when I actually start writing the music. So it's pretty much crafted, and I'm one of the very last things to happen, which is a blessing because for me, it means that a lot of creative decisions have been made before it gets to me that, of course, inform the best possible choices for the music. And not only that, but I get to watch these shows like a fan. They don't have any music in them, but other than that, they're pretty much done. So when I do start to write, I always watch it the first time with a stiff drink and just as a fan sitting on my couch, and then I'll go back and really do a detailed look and think about the music for it.
Okay, so what makes you want to have a long time collaboration like with Vince Gilligan? You have this long-term collaboration. What makes you as an artist want to collaborate with a person like Is it just a harmony? Is it your interest in their work, or is it just based purely on personal choices? Because I know that, like, okay, I like you, so I will work with you forever. I just want to know.
It's all of those things for sure. For me, I love these people. From Vince on down, they're family to me. They know my children. We've grown up together. We've just been doing this for so long, and I spend more time with them sometimes than I spend with my own family. So yes, I mean, I love these people, and that's certainly a huge part of it. But from a creative standpoint, what's fascinating to me and so exciting about getting to work with someone, obviously he's brilliant, but no matter who it was, that the opportunity to grow together creatively. I've learned so much about my craft from the people I work with, even though they're not composers, because they've made me so much better at what I do. And I hope that I've inspired them in some ways on the flip side.
Okay, so you studied electronic music and classical music, and this is obvious on your musical choice for composing, like the soundtracks, the scores. How does that help you? They seem like two different kingdoms of music.
They are and they can be, but I've always loved the mixture of the two. And I just think that there are aspects of both at which they excel in terms of achieving a certain tone or a certain emotion or a power. And I think the sum of the two is always more powerful than either just doing traditional orchestral music or doing electronic on its own. So in every one of my scores that I've ever done, there is some melding of the two. That the pendulum swings a little bit back and forth depending on who's leading the way. And I think you'll find in the Pluribus score that I'm leaning more into the orchestral side than I would have in Breaking Bad, for example. But there's elements of both in everything I do.
Okay, because there are scenes where I felt the music was heightening the tension in Pluribus. There was a scene where, like I know, I'm not going to spoil anything, but the main character was driving, and you could tell that the music was elevating with every stop along the road. How do you, as a music composer, know when to raise the music, when to make it lower, when to insert a vocal? How do you know all these things?
Some of it's practice, and some of it's just intuition, I think. And then again, a lot of it is asking questions. It's asking questions of the filmmakers about, what are the points that we want to reach? What are the points of elevation as we move along? Where are the moments where we want to release tension? Where are the moments where we want to build tension? What is the most important emotion or tone in any given moment that the music could help emphasize? And so it's a lot of that. It's a lot of practice, and it's a lot of just having a feel for the story in two senses, I think. In the moment, in any given moment. So like in that example that you just mentioned, that very cool shot driving scene, where we're in the perspective of being on the hood of the truck, right, looking in on Carol and seeing everything through the rear window. That that has moments of elevation within it, right, in the micro, but then over the course of the whole episode, it also, other in the television series, and one of the great things about working in TV is that you have to think not only about this moment or even this episode, but you have to think about the whole show in seasons, as in a context.
So, what I want to know is you said that in television, you
That's
think
okay.
in terms of a season or seasons. So, how does that make it different from you? Do you like have a futuristic idea about the music, or do you make particular music for now, knowing that you will replicate or you will do something again?
Again, it's a little of both. I mean, I can't know any more about the future than the writers know, or what the writers are willing to tell me. But I think there's a huge difference in working TV for example, rather than film, is that you always have to be thinking about the future a little bit. You have to leave the door open for yourself to be able to do a little bit of compositional gymnastics to get to new places sometimes and adapt as the story adapts over a much longer period of time. So you have to think about those things. That's one of the reasons why I'm very cautious about using themes in TV as opposed to in films, because you just don't know necessarily in a show like this where everyone's adapting and changing all the time, and the story is definitely going to take turns that you never imagined. You don't want to lock yourself into paint yourself into a corner unnecessarily if you can avoid it.
Okay, so do you create character themes? Like, do you have a character theme for Carol, for Walter, for Jesse, for any of those characters that you lived with long, maybe longer than us, because you have been through the making process, but also as a fan? Do you have particular themes in your mind for them?
Yeah, usually not actually, for the
Oh,
reasons that I was just trying to get into, because and this varies obviously greatly from project to project, but I have found, particularly on the Vince Gilligan shows, that these characters are so hard to pin down and define by their nature that attaching a theme to them would do exactly that, which is something we don't really want to do, right? We want people to be able to look at a character like Carol and feel five different things about her, right? You want to be disgusted by her on the one hand, you want to be rooting for her on the other hand, and that certainly was the same for Walter White and Jesse Pinkman and Saul Goodman and everyone in between.
Skylar, exactly, everyone.
Yeah, and so the theme thing feels a little black and white to me in a way that we don't usually operate on these shows. Having said that, there are certainly thematic motifs that I have used, and the way I usually use them is in a very specific context or for a very specific relationship. So in Pluribus, for example, there is a love theme for Carol and Helen, right? It's not really about Carol and it's not really about Helen, but it's really about the relationship between the two of them, which is a hugely important backbone to the story. Looking back to Breaking Bad, for example, there was a little motif that I excuse me, that I always used when he put on his Heisenberg hat. Right, it only appears a few times, but in those moments, it felt right.
100%. Okay, was that the most challenging aspect of the project, the unpredictability of the characters that Vince Gilligan create, or is there something more?
No, I think that, I think you hit it on the head. The hardest part about working on any of these projects with Vince is that you just don't know where it's going, and that's one of the brilliance of it for sure. And it's been fun as always, as to watch people speculate and know that they're all absolutely could not be more wrong, as always. And but that's the brilliance of it, and I know no more than anyone else, which I love. But yeah, of course, it's what makes it hard and makes it challenging, but also so rewarding when you feel like you've gotten it right.
Okay, so you've interacted with amazing talent like Bryan Cranston, like, Aaron Paul, all these amazing actors that were working on Breaking, but you were also on you created music for the Blacklist. Was it like the entire series or just a small part? Because I want to know, was there any interaction between you and James Spader, love of my life, James Spader?
The sad truth about being a composer is that we work in our little studios and we are
Isolated.
isolated little lone wolves out there. And not only that, but we don't even start working until the filming is done, generally speaking. So our worlds rarely interact. I've gotten to interact more with the folks in the Vince Gilligan worlds, just because of the nature of it's a smaller group, and we've been together for such a long time. I have met James Spader, but I haven't spent as much time with him as I would have loved to. He's an amazing human being and an incredible presence on that show. And to answer your first question, yeah, I came on very, very early on. I think the second episode or the third episode of The Blacklist, and worked on it for almost a decade. And absolutely, yeah, had the time of my life with that.
Wonderful. Dave, thank you so much for your generosity with your time and this amazing conversation. I just had so much fun, and I want to thank you for being a great composer.
Oh, well, thank you so much. I appreciate that. And thank you for your time and your interest. I hope everybody really enjoys Pluribus.
Yes, I can't wait for everyone to watch it, and I'm just so excited to talk about it with everyone.
Wonderful.